you, Sanjay. And the debate will continue to go about protesters and their right to protest, as well as their interactions with NYPD and also across the country. As we continue, we take a look now at the protesters. We talk also about rioters, and we also talk about looters. And these are all things that came up during the protest of George Floyd. But recently, George Floyd was laid to rest in Minneapolis, and one very special elected official right here in our area had the opportunity to attend. Fernando Cabrera, council member from District 14 right here in the borough of the Bronx, was the only state elected official in the House as George Floyd was laid to rest. We're pleased to be joined by Councilmember Cabrera, who joins us now here on our show.
Thank you for having me. Congratulations on your first program tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we're just trying to really raise the issue and talk about social justice and social action. I think that that's really the theme of what this show is all about and really what America is talking about right now. And when we look, of course, George Floyd becomes the major catalyst for this. But I want to get your take first and foremost, because you were one of those Bronx dignitaries that were present at the funeral of George Floyd in Minneapolis. First of all, how did that all come about?
Well, I received a personal invitation to go based on people who were involved and putting it all together. I was one of the only two New Yorkers outside of Reverend Al Sharpton, and I drove 18 hours to get there. I literally drove all the way there and drove back. It was very moving, Daren. It felt surreal. It was very painful. What you don't see in TV is the people that were in the back and the sides, people weeping, crying. At the same time, I felt a sense of hope, like I haven't sensed in a long time, that this time things can actually change. And I feel very honored. I was the only elected official from New York State or the city to be able to go. And then I had the opportunity to go to where he was murdered. And there were people there from every background, race, age. It was very peaceful demonstrations that were taking place. And there were celebrities also that were present. They were very approachable as well. There was a sense there as well that we must move forward, that change must take place, that we must break the yoke of injustice in the land because the land is sick.
Yeah, yeah. And so you take that, right? You take the injustice that occurred, and we know that George Floyd, I call it murder, was murdered pretty much on video for everyone to see. But I also want to talk a little bit about bringing it back home, because after we know the protests continue to happen all across the United States, but particularly let's talk about New York City for a minute. Talk to me about your thought about the protests that we're seeing. And then, of course, we definitely have to get into the fact of the whole social justice component in regards to the police department.
And so, you know, we had demonstrations here in the Bronx. I was part of the very first one. I was the only Bronx elected official there present. It was a peaceful one that took place. As a matter of fact, we are having another one with churches taking place. There was a huge one that took place over the weekend. People in the Bronx want to see change. We're tired of, like Reverend Al Sharpton mentioned, the need in our back. We can make it. We're not asking for any favors. We did have some looters, but I want people to separate the two, demonstrators with the looters. The looters is a small group of people compared to the thousands upon thousands of people who peacefully demonstrate. As a matter of fact, when the looting stopped, we saw even larger numbers of people coming out. Usually looting, what it does, it has the reverse effect, less people come out. This weekend, we saw numbers like we have never, ever seen. As a matter of fact, it broke the record of demonstration nationwide. Darren, think about this. 50 states. When have you seen demonstration take place in 50 states across the United States? and for that matter, around the world, because people is glaring what is taking place. What
Right.
a black man, a black woman goes through is inconceivable from early on in their lives. They have to carry this weight of injustice upon their back, and we gotta change. In terms of what we're doing in the council, I put forth a resolution. We just had a hearing this week alongside with another package of bills. I call upon the state of New York to raise it to a level, chokeholds to a knee and the neck to be raised to the level of felony violent class 1. So that's the serious consequences. In the city, we are only able to elevate it to a misdemeanor level, and we're passing that bill as well. We have resolutions calling upon this federal government to do the same. Also, for a more clear and transparent process for any police officer that is going through any type of discipline. We need clarity. We really need things to be open. It's kind of a very secretive process. And if there's going to be trust, this is the greatest commodity in society is trust. And it's going to be trust between the NYPD and the community and vice versa. We have to have transparency.
Yeah, let me go here because I want to talk a little bit more about the law in a second. But I do want to go back to the protest for 1 second before I go back. Let me ask you about allies, because much like the 1960s, we see that there are allies from, the Asian community, the white community. Everybody seems to be coming together on this cause. Do you have a sense, or do you feel like this is a little bit different than the 60s? Because in the 60s, you had a certain contingent. But based on what we saw this past weekend, with everybody coming out and saying Black Lives Matter, it almost seems like a new type of movement.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to all the historians that are speaking, and you take a look back, you just have to see the videos as well. Most of the marches were 98% African American during the 60s. Now, I mean, it is as mixed as I have ever seen, from every group, every age, every ethnic group, every background, religious, non-religious. I mean, you have a plethora of people coming forward because people are tired. This is not us. This is not what the majority of Americans and New Yorkers want for this nation. And so, yes, and I think that's going to serve as the catalyst for change all across this nation. And so the allies are so important in this moment. We must put the pressure on so justice may be in the land.
Yeah. And let me get to this, because you talked about laws and legislation. We know the governor has his reform legislation that's out dealing with 50A, and we saw what happened with that moving forward. But then also we talked about race baiting, right? And the race baiting, the calls where it's considered, driving while Black, or barbecuing while Black, or Starbucksing while Black, or being in a hotel while Black. And we understand that these are things that have happened in the community, and now making that a crime. Your thoughts about the level of seriousness and the fact that it's now being considered to be a crime?
Yeah, Daren, here's the sad thing. I want people to understand that people like myself, we have those bills in the council at the state level. We were just being blocked. Let me keep it real. We were being blocked. And this is why I want to thank everyone for putting the pressure on. Because if it wasn't for that pressure, it would just be a bill. It would have not passed into law. And so I'm glad that now we are going to have laws that are going to protect Black brothers and sisters, where people make some frivolous type of call. And that's a form of oppression for people to do such a thing. Laws change culture. Law says what's right, what's wrong, what's important, what's not, what matters, what we value. And we have to value human dignity. Daren, one of the things that I'm really pushing for, and I'm a pastor like yourself, one of the things I'm really pushing is that we get back a culture of honor, where we value everyone, that we understand everyone has the image of God within them. We have to respect that. No one is better than anybody else. We are all created equal under the eyes of God. So the diversity, it should not be something that people should be afraid of. It should be celebrated. We should celebrate our diversity instead of planting seeds of fear. Because the whole thing about racism and discrimination is driven by fear. And I tell every parent who's listening right now, no one is born a racist. And there's a pandemic going on. Please do not infect your children. If anything, get yourself cured. Let's check ourselves. I had to do some checking. We all got to do some checking. And the Latino community, I hear things sometimes that just, I had to put people in check when they say, "Oh, pelo malo," good hair, bad hair, fine nose. All hair is beautiful. Mm-hmm. Every nose is beautiful. We have different tastes, but they're all beautiful. They're all made by God. So, but those are the little things that we got to put in check. We got to check our heart when we elevate our group above others and becomes us versus them. And we're one big family at the end of the day.
Yeah, let me get this question in here. And I mean, it's the hardball question I got to throw at you, but you're big enough to receive it. A lot of people have criticism of elected officials because pretty much it's all talk, right? People don't want to hear from elected officials these days because it doesn't seem like they minimize what's going on. Recently in Washington, there were some Democrats and lawmakers, and they donned themselves in kente cloth. And, some people caught some flack for that because it simply seemed like, it was a gesture, but talk to me a little bit about how lawmakers could actually bridge the gap and what can be done to come across the aisle to be more palatable to community and to the residents of the community who feel like even in a matter such as social justice, in a matter such as social equality, that there seems to be just this huge disconnect also between, minorities and also government.
You're so right. I think that first, people expect elected officials to be authentic, to be real, and not, I think people are tired of photo ops. They're looking for action. They're looking for change. And it is time for change. And we have elections coming up. That's the time where I will call upon everyone. Have someone, vote for someone who's going to do something. Talk. It's a good start, but it's just the beginning. And if it doesn't culminate into action and change, then it was all frugal. I have to tell you, Derek, but there are those who do want to bring change. I work with Jermani Williams, a public advocate for the Cure of Violence program. We got that started because we knew that law enforcement was not enough. And we did this in the last recession, the only initiative. And the mayor is going to be announcing for an addition of $250,000 for the Cure of Violence to work with our young people, to give them employment for crew members that many of them started in the negative. And now we got to get them to a place where they could rise up and be given an opportunity. I think that we should expect and hold our elected officials accountable because they're there to represent. People are not there for us. We're there for people. We work for people. I always tell people I work for you.
Well, listen, let me jump here real quick because I got less than a minute with you left, but I want to ask you this question. Much talk around the nation about defunding police, right? Defunding the police department. Good idea, bad idea in New York City, real quick.
I think that we need to prioritize where our funding is going to go. We do need public safety. There are people from abroad who don't have the best intention. We're number one target in New York City, and we have issues still, crime that still take place. But we also got to prioritize. So we're going to look at the funding and see how we can invest it in young people. We have 25% of the youth department agency that got cut and only 1% from the NYPD. We need something that is going to be equitable. And I think that's what the majority of people are asking for without compromising public safety.
All righty. Well, we got to leave it there. Councilmember Fernando Cabrera of District 14, thank you so much for being with us here on this Social Justice Forum. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you, and congratulations on your first show.
Hey, thanks very much. Thanks.